I've been starting my talks the same each time, which is that we have these themes that we're working with, and we're in the period of the theme of the Noble Eightfold Path, and so we're not sure how long we're going to be on this theme, since it's such a rich theme that probably I can be with for a while. And so today I want to talk about part of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is wise or right speech, which I also talked about last week. And tonight is part 2, but you can just listen each individually. You don't need to know the other one to understand this one. And so just a very brief context. I also start to talk with a very brief context of the Noble Eightfold Path. It's the path that the Buddha was teaching as a way out of suffering, or towards freedom. And there's 8 steps, so that's why it's called the Eightfold Path. And these steps are wise view is the first one, or right view, depending on who translates it, wise or right. Wise intention, wise speech, wise action, wise livelihood, then wise effort, mindfulness, and then wise concentration. So those are the 8 steps. And so tonight's wise speech, which is the 3rd step and part of the ethical part of the Eightfold Path. And so last week we looked at a sutta that explained wise speech in the context of the Eightfold Path. So it's a sutta where all the path factors are listed and described, and kind of a little explanation for each. And there were 4 aspects of wise speech in that sutta: abstaining from false speech, abstaining from divisive speech, abstaining from harsh speech, and abstaining from idle chatter. And so that's all about what we shouldn't do, this sutta, or this description of wise speech. But there are also other suttas where the Buddha describes what we can do, like a positive framing of what we can do. And so I want to look at another sutta tonight, or use that as a framework for this talk. And this is from the Anguttara Nikaya 10.44. The Buddha says, "What 5 things should practitioners establish in themselves? 1, I will speak at the right time, not at the wrong time. 2, I will speak truthfully, not falsely. 3, I will speak gently, not harshly. 4, I will speak beneficially, not harmfully. And 5, I will speak lovingly, not from secret hate." So I'm using mostly those positive framings tonight, speaking at the right time, truthfully, gently, when it's beneficial, or beneficially, and with love, lovingly, or kind. Some people like the word kind because love is so charged in our society. But if you don't have any problems with that word, you can use love. And so we can reflect on our speech. Is it timely, truthful, gentle, beneficial, and kind? It's kind of the very short way of saying that. And it can be actually a very handy framework for our daily lives. Like whenever we're interacting with others, or that inner speech that we were looking at tonight, we can keep these aspects in mind in any meeting we have with another, whether it's face-to-face or online or even social media or whatever it is. Though it might not always be like super easy to keep all those 5 in mind at the same time. So even if we can remember just 1 or 2 of them, can already be very beneficial. And so the first one is our speech timely? Is it the right time to say what you're going to say? And, it might actually not be. Sometimes it's not the right time to say something. like when my wife is really busy with something, really concentrated on something, and I start bugging her about taking the trash out, it might not be the right time. Maybe I'll wait till she's done with her intensive task. That's kind of a silly example, of course. But in this way, you might also recognize this at work, and a colleague is doing something, might not be the right time to disturb them, or when you're in a meeting and you really need to make your point, it might not be the right time. It might be better to wait till next meeting or till after the meeting or whatnot. And sometimes it can take a lot of patience. Like I heard from a teacher who mentors a lot of people over the last decades, that this teacher was like, they feel like this person is not ready for what I need to say, and so they were waiting like sometimes like a decade or whatever to say something to someone in their mentoring relationship. So, it can take a lot of time. Think about that. If you want to say something, maybe I wait a decade. And so that's the first, is it timely? Then the second, is it truthful? And so we also looked at that last week. So I won't go into it too deeply, but you can wonder, am I speaking the truth or not? And like I was saying last week, there's so many ways that little tiny lies can slip in. Like these little things, like what I mentioned last week, for example, was if you're meeting someone and you say like, oh, let's come you can come over for dinner sometime, and you're actually not really intending for them to come over for dinner, you're just going to be social or something. It's just tiny little things that we all probably engage in, or exaggerating something. Those tiny little things that can happen, and you can reflect, like, is this really what I want? Do I want to be untruthful, or is it maybe painful and not so helpful to not speak the truth? And then the caveat I also gave last week is that sometimes you might not want to reveal something, and then the Buddha also sometimes just stayed silent. So you always have the chance not to reveal something if you don't want to. But engaging in blatant lies is not good. And so then, is our speech gentle? Is the third one. Is it mild? Is it tender? Is it, is there care behind our words? And then sometimes, I'm actually pretty direct by nature, and some of you might have noticed. And this is kind of a cultural thing. I'm from the Netherlands, and it's a very direct culture. I remember when I met my wife, she's from the US, and she was like, just Americans are very direct. And then she got to know me better, and she was like, oh, Americans are not that direct. And so it's been a real challenge for me to adjust to that, to be less direct, less coarse or rough or direct, a bit more gentle maybe in my speech. And so this is actually also an interesting point, that it can be cultural, right? What is gentle speech? In the Netherlands, it will be fine, and here it's not. So and in Japan or other cultures have like a very indirect way of speaking. So it might be even like very ungentle to say things that we say to each other easily here. And so I think it might also actually, this one might, to me at least as a non-native speaker, it feels pretty related to the one that's about kindness. But maybe for native speakers it's different. Gentle and kind is just a little bit different maybe. But we can kind of reflect on, like, are we speaking from this gentleness and kindness? And sometimes the opposite might come up, like anger or frustration or irritation, and we start speaking from that place. And then can we actually maybe hold back for a moment and not speak, so that the words, the angry words or the irritated words don't come out until we feel settled and we can feel like we can speak from this kindness or gentleness again. And then the fourth aspect is our speech beneficial? Who is it actually benefiting this speech? Is it benefiting us, the other, or both? And the most ideal way is that it's benefiting both, probably, but it's not always feasible, right? Sometimes we need to stand up for ourselves, and the benefit might not be so clear for this other person, while it is very clear for us that if we don't stand up for ourselves, it's not going to be beneficial for us. So we basically need to stand up for ourselves. And so this whole list is not about being a doormat. It's about it can be like beneficial speech can actually be that it might be not so pleasant for the other to hear, but it can still be beneficial because it's protecting our own boundaries that might need to be protected. And so sometimes we need to make choices that are hard, but we can try to speak from a place of kindness or compassion or gentleness, instead of from harshness or anger, or self-righteousness or whatever it is that we're feeling. And last week we also spoke about harmony and promoting harmony with our speech. I think that's also maybe included in this beneficial aspect. Is our speech contributing to harmony? I think it's a beautiful entrance into why speech, like, can we contribute to harmony in ourselves, in our environment, with others? And so, and then the fifth one is the kind or loving speech that I already touched on a little bit. And so reflecting, is this speech actually kind? Can be helpful. And so it's a very practical teaching, I think, that we can apply in our lives. Like picking one of those or two to work on for a little bit, for a little while, maybe, even if it's just for the day or for a week or a month, like, oh, is my speech timely? Like just reflecting on that. Like when you are engaging in speech, whatever speech it is, whether it's an email or actual speech or inner speech, even inner speech cannot be timely. It's often not timely. Is it truthful, gentle, beneficial, kind, picking one? And so I might have mentioned this also last week, but a very simple way to break down wise speech is to see, is to look at, is it wholesome or unwholesome? Is it speech that contribute to goodness, to wholesomeness, or is it speech that is causing harm, contributing to unwholesomeness? And so that could be sometimes an easy way to work with it, because of all those lists might be a bit much sometimes. And so this is a real training. It's not kind of overnight that this happens, that we can pay attention to our speech. And, it's just kind of this over and over applying ourselves to it. It's just going to be a process to work with speech. Being mindful of it in the first instance is already difficult. When we're speaking, we often lose our mindfulness easily. So just being able to be mindful during speaking at all is already a challenge. And sometimes it can be helpful to start with being mindful of the body when you speak. So my teacher, again, Sayadaw Tejaniya, talks about 50-50 mindfulness. I think 50% of the attention on the body and 50% on the speaking or on the listening. Listening is the other side of speaking, right? So it can be really helpful. Sometimes it can be necessary to let go of the body though, because then all these responses are happening. Like when we're listening to someone, for example, we might have all these responses of like, oh, what they're saying, I need to respond to this and this way, or this is not fair, or oh, this is beautiful, or how great, or we're just trying to form our answer or whatnot. We're just constantly, this inner speech is going on. Noticing that can be really helpful. This, oh, wait, I'm actually not really listening. I'm actually answering the question or answering whatever this person is saying instead of listening to them. And so I think, I think it can be a really fruitful practice. And it's a very layered subject that we can go very deep with. If this would be like our main practice for a month, it would be very rich if you practice this for a month. And so I encourage you to give it a try, to look at your inner and outer speech. Well, even if it's just like tonight and tomorrow or something that you decide, okay, I'm gonna really pay attention to speech, see what happens, see how often you lose mindfulness and how often you're not aware. And then also like recommitting, oh yeah, I was supposed to be aware of speech. And like sometimes we then start to blame ourselves, oh wait, oh, I'm such a lousy meditator, I'm such a lousy Buddhist, I'm not aware of my speech at all. And oh wait, I'm speaking to myself. Look, there's self-judgment going on. Just noticing that. There's no right or wrong. It's all just happening, conditions just playing out. And so I want to end with a quote from Venerable Vangisa from the Theragatha, which is a collection of poems from the awakened monks at the time of the Buddha. And so Venerable Vangisa is saying, speak only such words that do not hurt yourself nor harm others. Such speech is truly well spoken. Speak only pleasing words, words gladly welcomed. Pleasing words are those that bring nothing bad to others.